Good morning, everybody. It is really good to see you. Welcome to a Friday edition of The Sweat, presented by DraftKings alongside Jesse Cofield. I am Emerson Lotzius. So much to get to, and we're going to really stuff it all inside 55 minutes.
We're going to do that hockey. We're going to do NASCAR plus college basketball bets, and we're talking about the size of man hands at the NFL Combine, which is something we discussed at length yesterday, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, I'm going to have to go back and watch that. That sounds really great.
Yeah, no, it was scintillating stuff. But first, we have a 9-game NBA slate to discuss with our NBA panel.
All right, good morning to DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne, Matt Meiselman, and the debut here, making his debut on The Sweat, Jeff Pratt. Congratulations, Jeff. How are you feeling? You have made it.
Thank you, Emerson. I'm feeling great. Ready to talk some hoops. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, awesome, dude. Well, you're up first. We're going to start on the DFS side of this slate. Who is your must-roster play?
Awesome. So I'm paying up here, and it's going to have to be Giannis. You know, you look at what he's done over the past 7 games. He scored 62-plus DraftKings fantasy points. He's going up against the Bulls. They ranked 27th in fantasy points allowed to big men. He dropped 30-12 in his only matchup against Chicago this season. And both of these teams are really getting up and down the floor this year, too. Milwaukee ranks 5th in pace. Chicago ranks 13th. That only means more transition opportunities for Giannis, who averages 8.4 points on the break per game, which is by far the most in the league. So I'm paying up for Giannis, but I think you're getting guaranteed production here.
Okay, man. Yeah, he's going wicked pricey there, Gary. And what about you?
I'm going pretty pricey. Not as pricey as I could go, though. I think at center tonight, I'm looking at Karl Anthony Towns. And obviously, whenever you play a center not named Nikola Jokic, you're a little worried, especially when Jokic is going up against the Houston Rockets, who have been just an absolute tire fire against opposing centers so far this season. But Towns' numbers skyrocket when Anthony Edwards is not on the court. He goes from basically a 28% usage rate to almost a 35% usage rate so far this season. He's also averaging 1.5 DraftKings points per minute when Edwards is off the court so far this season. There could be some worry here about a lopsided script going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but they've been kind of frisky lately, and both these teams are just among the highest paced teams in the NBA. Across the last 10 games, both rank in the top 7 in terms of pace. So I just think you're going to get a lot of possessions in this game. It's going to be very back and forth. And I think Towns, with a huge usage rate, shouldering a huge burden here with no Anthony Edwards, is probably going to have a ceiling performance.
All right, Matty, your must-roster player tonight is who and why?
So these guys took my 2 favorites. I do love Giannis basically to be the highest scorer on the slate, and Towns I think is the best value in the pay-up range. So I'll name someone else who I think could emerge as the guy that you need to roster with James Harden. So I don't think Joel Embiid is going to rest tonight, just to put that out there. But I think it's possible. The Sixers do play the Heat tomorrow, and that's the game that probably matters more to them as far as chasing the 1 seed. Embiid is going for MVP, so I think most likely they want to play him the full back-to-back. But his health is the biggest concern for them getting to the NBA Finals. So I think Embiid, if he does play, which is most likely, he's a good play. But I don't think too many people are looking at James Harden tonight. And if we do get that news today that Embiid isn't going to be out there, I think Harden at 11,500 becomes the guy that you have to have. So I think this is just something I'm pointing out to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think any of these guys, Giannis, Towns, Embiid, Harden, they're all worth considering.
Okay. All right, let's talk value here. Gary, which value play are you leaning towards right now?
Yeah, I'm already suggesting people hamstring their lineups by playing a second center. But I'm going to stick in that same Minnesota OKC game and just keep riding Isaiah Roby. It seems like the Thunder, since the trade deadline, have decided that they just want to see what they have in this guy. Derek Favors is barely touching the court anymore. Roby has started 6 of their last 7 games. Foul trouble has been an issue, and if Karl Anthony Towns is going to have a massive performance, that could be a little worrisome. But I had that same thought process going into the Thunder's last game against the Nuggets, where Roby had arguably the best game of his career against Nikola Jokic. So if he can survive, he only needs like 25 minutes to really bring back some serious value, because in that 7-game span, he's averaging over 1.1 DraftKings points per minute played. So I think in this up-tempo contest that should be really high scoring, getting as many pieces as possible, even if it's like, Poku or someone like that. But I think Roby of the Thunder plays is my favorite tonight.
All right, Matt, where are you going with some value here?
Yeah, there's some good choices tonight. I think I'm going to go with Cameron Payne, though, for a couple reasons. This is his second game back. And in the first game against Portland the other night, he only played 20 minutes. And I think that minutes limit, which it kind of seems like is what happened, is going to scare some people off. But that game was a blowout. And I think if the Suns had not blown out the Blazers, I think if Portland had been able to keep it close, I think Payne would have played 25 or more minutes. And for tonight, I could see him getting to around 30 without Devin Booker, without Chris Paul, obviously. So I think people may look at last game and think that Cameron Payne is still a little bit limited. He'll still be popular, but to me, he's not going to be as popular as he should be because he is really the main guard on this offense now. And the minutes restriction from last game, I don't think really is a restriction. I think the Suns were just up by too much.
All right, Jeff, what do you think?
I'm following Matt's suit here and going with another guard. I'm going to focus on Raul Neto, who has really stepped up for Washington with Bradley Beal out for the season, and obviously Spencer did when he got traded to the Mavs. Neto, he scored 25-plus DraftKings fantasy points in 4 of his last 6 games. The Hawks ranked 23rd in DraftKings fantasy points allowed to guard, and they're coming off a back-to-back. Guards have been pretty effective against the Hawks over the past couple of games. Kobe White dropped 15 and 5. Marcus Smart dropped 16, 6, and 4. Fred VanVleet obviously went for a big game a couple nights ago. Obviously, Neto isn't as skilled as the guys I just mentioned, but there's potential for a big game against one of the worst defensive guards in the league, in Trae Young.
Hey, Maddie, let's go to the DK Sportsbook here. Give us a player prop that stands out to you.
Okay, so this is not one that I'm betting yet, but with Joel Embiid as someone who I think has at least a 10% chance of sitting tonight, you have to look at Tobias Harris. And in particular, it's 6.5 rebounds at plus 115 to the over. If Embiid doesn't play, I think Harris almost becomes the center for this team. I'm not sure exactly who Philly would start there. I don't anticipate DeAndre Jordan being ready. They signed Willie Cauley-Stein. I don't know that he makes the rotation. Maybe Paul Millsap is the starting center if Embiid ends up not playing. But we could see Harris play some center minutes. On the one hand, it's a big problem against a very good front court that Cleveland has, but there's just going to be extra rebounds to get for the Sixers if Embiid doesn't play. So this is definitely contingent on Embiid not being in the lineup, but I think you just have to keep an eye on these Tobias Harris props. 15.5 points, too. There's just so much more for him to do for this team if Embiid does get the night off in preparation for tomorrow's game against Miami.
All right, Jeff, what player prop do you like tonight right now?
I'm going with RJ Barrett over 32.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I'm riding the hot hand here. RJ, he's been a man on a mission since returning from an ankle injury. He's hit the over on this number in all 3 of his last games, and he's cleared it quite easily in 2 of them. This is a pretty depleted Suns team without Devin Booker or Chris Paul, and the fact that the Knicks don't have a true point guard has made Barrett step up as a playmaker. He's seen a usage rate of over 30% in each of those last 3 games, and I expect the ball to be in his hands quite a bit tonight.
All right, Gare Bear.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Karl Anthony Towns. His points prop is 26.5 tonight. It is plus money at plus 105. D'Angelo Russell gave one of my favorite quotes of the season following Towns' 39-point performance in their last game where he said, you got to feed him, you got to feed him, you got to feed him. Then if you run out of food, you got to feed him the spoon. Like, they just want to get Towns the ball right now. I think he's in a groove. In the 4 games so far this season, he has started that Edwards has missed. He's averaging 29.3 points per game in those 4 games. And that number could be even higher if you want to fudge the numbers just a little bit. There was that contest recently against Charlotte where Edwards suffered this, probably the initial knee injury that has now become like a nagging knee injury. Edwards was only able to play 17 minutes in that game. And when he wasn't able to play the second half, Towns also went off for another 39-point performance. So I just think with the usage he's going to see tonight, he should be able to clear this number pretty easily.
All right, Slate Approved Pick Time. What is your absolute favorite bet on the board tonight, Jeff?
I'm going back to Milwaukee here. I'm going to take the Bucks minus 4.5 against Chicago. The Bulls are a bit of a pretender to me, and there's one major stat to back that up. While they are 39-24 on the season, they're just a whopping 2-13 against teams above 600. The Bucks qualify for that mark, and they're coming off a huge win against Miami after being down 14 with less than 6 minutes to go. I think Milwaukee should probably cruise here.
All right, what do we think, Garion?
Yeah, sort of the inverse. I'm going to take a team that just can't seem to beat bad teams, which is the Toronto Raptors. I'm going to go the other way here and take the Magic plus 8. I didn't really understand the spread last night between Raptors-Pistons. Don't really understand this spread either unless someone has inside intel that Fred VanVleet is going to play in this contest. The Raptors just 1-4 ATS their past 5 games. They are 2-8 ATS their last 10 games against teams with a winning percentage below 400. I honestly think without Van Vliet, without Anunoby, if you stack up these two rosters, there's not that much difference. So I'll just take the points with the Magic here.
All right, Matt.
So maybe he's listening to me, but Tobias Harris just popped up on the injury report since my last answer. He's now questionable with an illness. I don't know what's going on.
He actually, he's a huge fan of the sweat. We can confirm.
Yeah. So he's maybe going to not play tonight because he didn't like my take or something. It's just very strange. But anyway, for picks for tonight, I do like the Suns laying 6.5 against the Knicks. I don't really think Devin Booker matters a ton for the Suns in the short term. Obviously, if they're going to win in the playoffs and make a run to the NBA Finals, they're going to need Booker, and they're probably going to need Chris Paul too. But the Suns now have Cameron Payne healthy, which is a really big deal for games that Booker isn't out there. And now the line is up to 7, so it's a little bit less exciting. But I still do like it there. It's basically, now that Payne's there, the Suns have the players available to make up for the loss of Booker, even if the game slows down, because Booker pushes the pace more than these other guys can. But Cameron Johnson's a good player. Mikal Bridges is really good. Jay Crowder's good. They can give the ball more to DeAndre Ayton in the post. So I still like this team a lot, and they're playing the Knicks. I think that kind of just goes without saying. It's a good spot for them. So to me, the Suns should be at least 8 or 9 point favorites. I think 6.5 or 7 is a little too low.
All right. That's it?
Yeah.
All right. Well done, everybody. We are breaking down. Jeff, congratulations again on your debut. This is really big. You can put this on your LinkedIn profile now. Some of the best college basketball bets are available. They are available on the DK Sportsbook tonight. I've been out of here for a few days.
We'll get to that after this quick break.
Thank you.
Back here on The Sweat, we're sticking with hoops, but making our way to the college ranks where conference tournament season is just getting started.
Oh, yes, it's a great slate. I mean, tomorrow as well, so let's have a little chit-chat about it with DK Nation's college sports editor, Colin Sherwin. Start us off with your favorite bet tonight, dude.
So, guys, last night I was up very late because it's college basketball season, and that's what we do. And I watched the San Diego Toreros really struggle with the Pepperdine Waves, like to the point where you're struggling with a 1-17 team in the league. They had to exert a ton of energy. And the structure of the West Coast Conference tournament is that the team you play tomorrow didn't play the day before because there is a single bye, a double bye, and a triple bye. The Portland Pirates now get those Toreros tonight. They are only laying 1.5. I love this game. It took everything, and I mean everything, that San Diego had last night to get on the board and to get through. Portland should really run away with the spot. This should be the line anyway, but with the amount of energy that San Diego had to exert, I'm really going with the Pilots tonight.
All right, so on the DK Sportsbook, we got futures on the board for most of the smaller conference tournaments. So as of right now, whose odds do you like to punch their automatic ticket to the dance?
So I don't see any way that Murray State loses. They only got to play 2 games to win. They're minus 190, so the price isn't too great. So I really like that one. If you want something that's a little more fun and interesting, there are, let me find it because I got to see where it moved to. Here it is, Bellarmine in the Atlantic Sun Tournament. So they match up pretty well with Liberty. Liberty doesn't take a lot of threes. The thing that Bellarmine doesn't do well at all is defend the three. Pretty good at everything else, but they just give up open shots like crazy. Liberty is not a team that can take advantage of that. So if you want a little bit of a flyer here, I don't hate Bellarmine to win the Atlantic Sun at plus 900. So it's a good price.
All right, let's move on to Saturday here because we mentioned that's a great slate as well. A lot on the line for conference seeding and bubble teams. We know that. That happens this time of year. How about a top 15 matchup, though, in the SEC, Arkansas, Tennessee? Which side are you on here?
I am going to be on Arkansas the rest of the way. Better coached, just a team that really gives 40 minutes of effort. Their depth is going to really start to come out in March. And that's where they really have some strength. And plus, just there's a trend, and I didn't pull a specific number, but if you follow college basketball, if you have the opportunity to bet against Rick Barnes in March, just do it. I don't care if he's at Texas, Tennessee, like anywhere. Like if Rick Barnes is coaching an AAU team or his high school kids, bet against him in March. This is going back 20 years. If you have a chance to fade Tennessee, do it. I really like Arkansas all the way, the rest of the way as well. That's one of the best coach teams in the country under Eric Musselman.
All right, out in the Pac-12, 2 more potential higher seeds in the tournament facing off. USC heading across town to UCLA. So which team needs a win more in this one, and who do you think is coming out on top?
I think it's pretty even as to who. I mean, these are both teams that are going to get into the tournament. UCLA is going to get the better seed, but I'm not hugely a fan of like this need at this point. The need they're going to want is through the Pac-12 tournament, because that's when they're going to really want to put it away. USC matches up really well with UCLA. UCLA has struggled at times to score the basketball for extended stretches against teams that aren't as good. I like USC here, especially to cover. Figuring that line is going to be around 8, 7.5, 8, maybe as high as 9. And if it's anywhere in that range, I'll be on USC.
All right, well, speaking of needing a win here, which team absolutely needs one this weekend so they don't have to rely on a long conference tournament run to get in here?
It's more about not blowing it at this point for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. They play at Penn State this weekend, and this just seems like a really tricky spot. This could be the one that could get them. They're right on that bubble. And if they don't find a way to get this one through, I think they could be in trouble. You can sort of lose in the first or second round of the Big Ten tournament, and that league is so deep that you're going to be okay, but you can't lose to Penn State. And so I think that is a huge, huge game this weekend. Ron Harper Jr. is one of the most exciting players to watch in the country. He needs better teammates, but I think if Rutgers can find a way to get this done, I think they're going to be safe.
All right, along those lines, we also have odds on some of those bubble teams who might need a nice run in their conference tournament to sneak into the big dance. So do you have your eye on anyone's odds there, like before we finish the regular season?
Before we finish whose odds do I like to win their conference tournament? So San Diego State's playing really well right now. They got that big win at Wyoming, which I think was a huge factor in where they're going to be and how they're going to be playing the rest of the way. San Diego State at plus 310 seems like a really good price to me. I would think they win that tournament at least 1/3 of the time. So I think you're getting a really, really good number with San Diego State. This is a weird year. There hasn't been too many crazy upsets yet, but I think those start to kick in right about now. This is going to be a fun weekend. If you love college basketball, just glue yourself to the couch. Realize that the major conferences are going to start to take over next week, but we're going to get our first winners starting tomorrow in conference tournaments in the OBC. And the first automatic bid will probably be Murray State at a minus 190. That seems like a lock.
Yeah, we know your South Florida Bulls will be glued to the couch for most of March Madness. So
they were yesterday's pick here at the Sweat, and they did cover. They did cover the 12.5. So.
There he is. There's my guy. Colin, it was good having you back here, man. Good catching up with you. And we're going to shift our focus to Sticky Puck coming up after this. All right, guys, we hit on the NBA. We hit on college basketball. Now let's cool it off. Let's put the show on ice. Let's talk some NHL. RotoWire's Paul Bruno. Absolute pleasure to have you here. NHL Morning Skate. Let's break down the best DFS and sportsbook plays on tonight's 7-game NHL slate. What's the first question?
Paul, we want to know who your favorite center is. Who are you going to be going with? Are you going to pay up at center?
Well, the way I approach this today is, as I usually do, I look for the hot skaters and the mismatches, and I come up with three of them at the center ice position. Mika Zibanejad of the Rangers, costing $7,300 against New Jersey tonight. He's coming off 11 points in his last 10 games and 30 shots on goal for an average of 13.5 DK points per game. Similarly, I like Tage Thompson. Maybe a contrarian play when you consider Minnesota's a better team than Buffalo, but Thompson's been on fire offensively with 9 goals and 2 helpers, 37 shots on goal for 16.4 DraftKings points per game in his last 10. And finally, Boone Jenner. He's been centering a top line in Columbus that's been very good offensively thanks to the prolific shooting of Patrick Laine, but this guy's the guy that sets him up, and he's got 11 points in his last 10 games along with 31 shots on goal of his own. So bit of an under-the-radar pick there to surprise people. It might be low ownership as well.
All right. Any under-the-radar pick at winger?
I've got, I'm going to go with 3 guys that are near the top end of the board. Emerson, and first of all, Kirill Kaprizov. He's had an outstanding year for Minnesota. It's been a breakout campaign for him, and he's got a pretty good matchup in against Buffalo tonight. Minnesota's defense has been a little porous, but there's nothing wrong with their offense, and he's been a big part of it with 12 points and 33 shots on goal in his last 10 games. Chris Kreider is one of the top scoring NHLers this season. A bit of a surprise when you consider that he's among the big boys there, but 5 goals and 41 shots. A big reason why he's getting all these goals. He's getting a lot of shots on goal. People are setting him up all over the place in New York, and he's compiled some nice offensive stats. Only $6,700 against New Jersey, a team that is very weak in the nets, and that's why I like this matchup. And I talked about Patrick Laine. He's cheaper than the other 2 guys. I don't quite get it because he's got 8 goals, 14 points in his last 10 games played, coming in at only $6,400 in a game against Los Angeles, and the Kings are leaking goals defensively.
All right, speaking of defensively, best defenseman for your lineup. Who is it, Paul?
Incredible segue.
Don't you love these segues, Jesse? That's
I love
beautiful.
it. You set me up
Award-winning.
for it.
Adam Fox with the Rangers, $6,600 the price tag against New Jersey Devils. I think that's the best matchup among the top scoring blue liners tonight. Drew Doughty's had a very nice campaign this season, priced a little cheaper for $5,900 against Columbus. I expect a high scoring game there because their team's offenses are playing much better than their respective blue liners and defenses rather. And 8 points and 24 shots on goal, his record, including 15 block shots. That accounts for almost 12 DK points per game. And finally, Moritz Seider. He's probably one of the leading candidates for the Rookie of the Year award, the top defenseman among rookies for sure. He gets a bit of a contrarian play for me tonight. $5,600 his value. In 13 points and 24 shots on goal, 29 blocks for the rookie defenseman, playing well at both ends of the ice. 15.7 DraftKings points per game over his last 10 starts.
Paul, you're like the perfect dude to talk value plays with.
Yeah.
So, do you have a favorite? Do you have a couple dudes you could try to squeeze in on the backside of a lineup?
Emerson, I think tonight's a good line stack opportunity when you consider the Vegas second line wingers primarily. So I'm focusing on Jonathan Marchessault. He's got 9 points, 28 shots on goal, $4,800 the price tag against an Anaheim club that is giving up a lot of goals of late. And I pair him with his line mate Riley Smith on the other flank, $3,800 his price tag, similarly scoring more than normal, 7 points and 30 shots on goal in his last 10 starts. If you're looking for somebody else from another team in another game, I look at Buffalo. Their offense is being led by some guys that have had tough times over the last couple of years in Jeff Skinner and Kyle Okposo. I'm looking at Okposo thinking this guy's just the right profile to play against a big physical Minnesota team. He's a big physical guy himself, comes in at $3,300, 6 goals and 26 shots on goal in his last 10 starts.
All right, Paul, let's move over to the sports book. Which goal total are you targeting tonight? A lot of 6.5s on the board here. The lowest is going to be Golden Knights Ducks. That's 5.5.
Oh.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for me. I think that's a low total given, I already said, the porous nature of Anaheim's goaltending situation and the fact that Vegas played last night and they're going to go with their backup tonight. So I'm going to go to the alternate line for a 6.5 total goal venture for a plus 125 payoff when they hit the 7-goal mark in that game. And I'll also pay for the over in Minnesota versus Buffalo. It's a similar situation where Minnesota's going in with their backup goalie tonight on the second of back-to-backs against a Buffalo team that, unless they play Maple Leafs, they stink defensively. So I'm going to go all the way up to 7.5 on the alternate line for a plus 215 payoff there.
All right, favorite puck line or money line bet? What do you got?
I got 3 of them, 2 on the puck line, 1 on the money line, Emerson. I'm going to take the Rangers over New Jersey, minus 1.5 goals for a plus 145 payoff. I just think that New York's playing with much more structure, and I think there'll be an easy winner in that one. And I think Vegas, on the second of back-to-backs, I know that may be vulnerable in some people's minds, but I just think they've got too much talent to not overwhelm Anaheim, given the fact that I said the Ducks are leaking goals defensively. So I'll take that bet minus 1.5 for plus 200. I go to the money line for the Buffalo-Minnesota game, and I'll take Buffalo tonight over Minnesota. The Wild will be putting their backup goalie in the nets, and I think Buffalo's on a bit of a high after maybe their best game of the season, so I'll take them plus 165 tonight.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Please
That's it, dude.
enjoy your weekend. We're going to talk some football next, so stay tuned.
All right, we're going to talk some NFL right now. We have an incredible three-man panel here to assist
Amazing.
us. DraftKings contributors, Jeff Ulrich, Steve Buchanan, and Pierce Dietrich. Before we get into NFL spin move, though, Steve, we've been doing our best to keep you employed here at DraftKings with baseball MIA and no one knowing if it'll ever come back again. Just wanted to kind of revisit your darts pick last week. Yeah, Joe Cullen, you took him over Michael Smith, plus 105 odds there, but the final result was Smith ended up winning that 6-5. So we're going to need you to step it up a little bit in the darts department if you don't mind.
Wow.
Everything else has been rock solid from you. I am not going to lie.
I mean, I'm going to say, like, you picked the one bad one. You must be like everybody else on Twitter because you ignore all the winners that we've given out since then. So I understand maybe darts, I need to polish it up a little bit, but everything else has been rock solid. Don't forget that.
Steve gave out to Shane Lowry, who came to the 18th hole with a putt to make a playoff last week. I mean,
he couldn't do it. That was
kudos.
a terrible approach shot by him, but he was also playing in a Jumanji monsoon at the time there on 18.
All right, well, Steve
Anywho,
is still here.
we gotta
He's
go.
still employed. So we're going to go ahead and move
Congrats.
into NFL spin move, okay? So DFS sports betting spin on the latest NFL news, the latest NFL headlines. So as we talked about yesterday, it is that time of year where a lot of coaches and GMs are throwing their support, their confidence behind their current starting quarterback,
so
right?
much confidence.
So yesterday it was the Dolphins' new coach, Mike McDaniel, saying Tua has some untapped skills that he's excited for. Again, we can't be sure if it's simply because there aren't that many quarterbacks truly on the market, especially with GM Chris Greer closing the door on Deshaun Watson to Miami. So like, whatever the case, how do you feel about Tua's fantasy potential in McDaniel's system? What do we think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, tons of untapped potential might be stretching it a little bit, but at the same time, McDaniels is a dude who obviously has worked under Kyle Shanahan his entire career. He's probably going to come in, run some kind of similar, wide zone run scheme to Kyle Shanahan. He's probably going to have some kind of West Coast offense with a lot of just sort of short slants, short passing plays. And I think that Tua, the one thing he's proven, he can be pretty accurate in the right type of system. Is he a good downfield passer? No, he had 13 attempts of 20 plus yards last year. I don't really think that's going to change, but if Mike McDaniel, who's obviously, kind of the talk of the town right now, isn't really gonna do that and have this big like Bruce Arians push it down the field scheme, he probably does see some untapped potential into a Tagliabue. And look, stability is a big thing. We touched on it yesterday with head coaches. It's the same with quarterbacks. At least he's got a third-year QB here in Tua. Took a little bit of step up in certain categories last year. Wasn't a huge one, but no, I think there's something to it. At the same time, there's obviously a little bit of hyperbole in saying there's tons of untapped potential as well.
Okay, Steve, what do we think? Are you feeling all the untapped potential?
I mean, I think that's a little bit of a stretch when you talk about untapped potential, but I mean, I think it's fair to say that this was a shaky year for the Dolphins overall. I mean, that team was absolutely ravaged by injuries. It felt like since day one. Then they had that unbelievable second half where all of a sudden it looked like they were going to be making the playoffs. Obviously, Tua missed a handful of games during the season as well, so that was a factor as well. If this team can actually stay healthy, if they can actually get some protection in front of Tua, I think we can actually start to see more of him. Everybody is so quick that they just want to drop Tua. Oh, we're done with him already. We need to get somebody else. Who are you going to get? Who are you going to go out and get? That's the problem there. This isn't a strong class and you draft a quarterback in. There's not a lot of suitors that you can go to and get like a legit QB1. What are you going to do? Get Sam Darnold? What are you going to do? Get Kirk Cousins? Like, that's not going to be the answer there. You have Tua. You go with Tua. If it doesn't work out after this year, then fine. Maybe we can start talking about moving in another direction. But I think in the new system here that they're going to be getting, I think it's worth taking a look at Tua, at least in the first half of the season, see what we can get out of him from here.
All right, Pierce, how do we feel about this?
Yeah, I don't trust these young genius coordinators, but I am impressed with his adaptability. San Francisco had the fourth best offense when you adjust for defense last season, and they didn't really have a great quarterback. And so McDaniel adjusted the offense. They worked plays to Deebo Samuel in creative ways. They leaned on a good offensive line. They leaned on a good run attack, and they found ways to be a good offense. So he's going to have to adjust again and adapt to the bad offensive line that Steve just mentioned. And, I mean, if he can figure that out, they've got the pass catchers in Miami. Tua can absolutely have the big numbers. And if Duke Johnson is still going to be their number one running back, they could be passing the ball 75% of the time. They may not win any games, but for fantasy purposes, Tua is going to get so much volume in action, and it's probably going to be a short passing game, but that could work with Waddle. So I think fantasy-wise, I feel pretty comfortable. Now, in terms of making the playoffs, not so much.
All right, let's stick in the AFC, though, here. We talked a little bit about Ryan Tannehill yesterday, while the Titans have essentially committed to Tannehill for the next year. They're still meeting with some of the top quarterbacks at the Combine. There's a lot of quarterback intrigue here for this team over the next few weeks. How should the Titans approach Tannehill and all of these quarterbacks in the draft? Not that it's a very strong quarterback draft class, Steve.
Allegedly, it's not.
So, this always kills me, right? Oh, the Titans have met with some of the quarterbacks. Look, every team is doing their due diligence. If Mike Trout was a free agent right now, the Orioles would meet with him. Is Mike Trout going to the Orioles? No, he's not. All the teams are doing their due diligence on what they should be doing. The Titans have way more glaring holes on their team than quarterback. They need quarterbacks. First and foremost, there was no problem going downfield against the Titans through the air. They need linebackers. They need defensive help all around. Is quarterback an area that maybe they can address later in the draft? Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But for them to go out and draft a quarterback in the first round, that would be egregious. They absolutely cannot afford to do that. They need to upgrade in so many other spots. How about even maybe a wide receiver? All these guys are breaking records at the 40-yard dash. All these speedy wide receivers that are going this year. There's so many other positions they need to address. Tannehill is obviously not the long-term answer, but he's fine in the short term. They should not be drafting a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah, whoever is controlling the 40-yard dash clock there at the Combine was hammering the unders this year. There's no doubt about that. Pierce, if they take a quarterback in the first round, should they trade up to get the best guy? I mean, because a lot of these dudes are going to slip to them.
I don't think anyone is going to slip. I believe that this quarterback class is just going to get hyped up more and more and more, and you're going to have to pay up for them. I'm not sure if that's the route to go, but I do believe that they need to get rid of Tannehill. I mean, you put the Colts side by side with the Titans, these teams are very similar. And what do we say about the Colts? They're not going anywhere with Carson Wentz. Well, maybe the Titans make it to the playoffs with Tannehill, but like we said all last season, they weren't going anywhere in the playoffs, and they didn't. And the same thing is going to happen. So you might as well move him now, move him while his value is at its highest. We've been talking about the supply of quarterbacks being low, the demand is high. You're never going to get a better asking price right now. I don't know if you're going to get a second round or a first round pick for him, but you can get something for him. And what I would really be targeting is Tyler Huntley. Why are we not talking more about Tyler Huntley? I think he could be a starting quarterback. He's definitely more ready to go than anybody in the draft. He's better than any of these free agents. I don't know how you work that deal. You have to work in some other teams, but the Titans and other teams should be looking at Baltimore's backup.
All right, Jeff, is Tannehill going to be in this like Jimmy Garoppolo type spot this year if they go with the quarterback in the first round too?
Yeah, I mean, they could be. I mean, he will be if they do end up going through the draft, right? I mean, if they end up breaking Steve's heart and taking a quarterback in the first round or even in the second round, I mean, I think it will be that kind of spot for Tannehill. I mean, look, we mentioned some of the players out there. Desmond Riddler tested really well. Maybe they look at like Malik Willis and just try and get like a ton of athleticism and just try and hammer teams with the run with Henry and Willis back there. But I think Pierce is actually right. I mean, I think the Titans are a pretty solid team. Maybe they have a few holes on defense, but their defense really toughened up last year. Look, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC. This team isn't that far off, but none of these rookie quarterbacks. Are you telling me the Titans are going to draft a rookie and then just start him over Ryan Tannehill? The 49ers picked a guy in the top 5 last year and didn't even do that. So there's no way any of these draft picks are coming in and just replacing Ryan Tannehill. If you want to replace Ryan Tannehill, Pierce is correct. You need to go on the free agent market. Tyler Huntley, Mitch Trubisky. People can laugh all they want. Both of those players have better upside than Ryan Tannehill. And if you can somehow, construct their career or just get more potential out of them, they will probably have a better chance of dragging the Titans a step further in the playoffs. So I like that idea too. But the real answer is there's no easy options for the Titans unless they're going to make a play for Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. They're probably just stuck with going with Tannehill, maybe making a gamble in the draft and seeing how that works out.
Jeff.
Yes.
You mentioned Mitch Trubisky and upside in the same sentence. Was that on purpose?
There'll be no Mitch Trubisky slander while I'm on the show.
All right. Oh my God, this isn't Madden, bro.
This
isn't Madden Mitch we're talking about, where you can just run for 100 yards a game. This is real life, Jeff.
All right, guys.
All right.
Jeff, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say, Jesse, that I'm excited for whichever team decides to take the opportunity to have Mitch Trubisky on their team. Because they're going to become a top 3 team for me right off the bat. So very excited for that.
I love that
a year
for
in
you,
Buffalo,
Jeff.
he's a real man now.
Love that for you, Jeff. All right, guys, moving on. Carolina Panthers GM Scott Fitterer said that they'll most likely go with the best available option at 6 in the draft, and they'll be aggressive in their quarterback search. So looking at every option around the league, that would be aggressive. So how aggressive would it be taking a quarterback at 6, and who would it be? Do you want to read the hand sizes? I know you've been very excited about this ever
Yeah,
since.
so Malik Willis's hand size, 9.5 inches, which is like what mine was. We measured before the show.
We did measure Emerson's hands before the show.
9.5, and then Jesse, you were around like 7.5-ish, right?
Yeah, it was a lot smaller.
Okay.
Matt Corral's 9 5/8. Desmond Ritter, 10-inch hands. So that's probably the 3 in the running, right? What do we think, Pierce? It's also kind of complicated, the quarterback situation, because Panthers are on the hook for $18.9 million guaranteed.
Is that Darnold?
After they picked up Darnold's 5th-year option last offseason.
Hand sizes, darts, Mitch Trubisky. We really need games to start back.
Yeah, it's only going to get weirder, man.
Yeah, it is. But I think this is a perfect example. If we're just talking about all kinds of things, and that talk is just going to keep happening with these quarterbacks, the more that we go over them, it's not going to look like, it looks like a stretch right now to take any of these quarterbacks with the 6th pick. But as we spend the next 2 months going over it and over it, and as these agents drop stories into the media and work the GMs, by the time we get to the draft, and we're already seeing like 4 quarterbacks are projected to go in the top 15, they're going to keep getting more hype. I mean, the hype train's just now leaving the station. It's going to get worse. And by the time the draft rolls around, they might be lucky to get a quarterback with the 6th pick. If you're in the top 5, this is a great opportunity to trade down to a team that's desperate for a quarterback. I'm looking at you, Jacksonville. Trade down and stack your team.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's okay.
Good advice.
Whoa.
Jeff, what do we think?
Yeah, trade down, sign Mitch Trubisky, and your problems will be solved. But no, the Jacksonville won't do that. It won't be the Mitch train. But we've already seen it, right? If you're on Twitter last night, what did we see? We saw Malik Willis throwing the ball about 80 yards in the combine. That's fantastic, except he missed the receiver by like 10 yards, right? So, anyways, I mean, it is. Someone's definitely going in the top 5 here. I don't know if it's going to be Malik Wilson yet. Matt Corral is getting talked up a little bit. One of the dudes, the Titans, Sam Howell, was getting talked up as well. Desmond Riddler testing off the charts. Here's the thing about the Carolina Panthers. They should have taken the quarterback last year. Why didn't they take Justin Fields? I mean, it's just that this team it's absolutely out to lunch that now they're thinking about taking a quarterback. Now, when the draft class is clearly weaker, they're now on the hook for Darnold. Now, like, oh yeah, I think we'll take a quarterback now. I almost just don't want to talk about the Panthers. It's so ridiculous how they've handled their quarterback situation. And they probably will take a quarterback at 6 now because they've left themselves with no options. They've paid to see Sam Darnold, and they don't like what they see, and they've backed themselves into a corner. So they're another team. Could be in the Mitch Trubisky sweepstakes, but from all accounts, it sounds like they're going draft this year, which is obviously the most backwards thing considering where they were last year in the draft.
Steve, do you think it's very backwards to pick up a quarterback in the draft? Also, Cam Newton, unrestricted free agent. They could possibly bring him back.
Oh, yeah, that sounds great. Like, wow, Mitch Trubisky, Cam Newton. Let's just throw that idiot Nick Foles in the mix as well.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, these guys keep talking about, there's a good chance that a quarterback's going to go in the top 5. So I want to present this question to Jeff. Which team is taking a quarterback in the top 5? Like, which one of those teams is taking it? Maybe Houston, but I feel like they feel like Davis Mills is the guy. So I don't think – so you tell me, which team is taking a quarterback in the top 5? Because I don't see a team.
No, I think there'd be a trade. I definitely agree. I don't see a clear path for any of the teams in the top 5 right now to take quarterback, but I definitely think that one of those teams will be smart enough to accept a trade and trade back. So
I mean, if anything,
and Houston could be one of them. Houston is definitely one of them. Like I think you're right. There's no better option than Davis Mills in this quarterback class, or at least not by leaps and bounds, right? So I think Houston is a very viable trade candidate.
Like, the way I see it right now, the first team that legitimately needs a quarterback other than the Panthers is probably the Broncos at 9. Then you got Washington at 11, and then maybe even Minnesota at 12. Those could be the teams in the top 15 who are in the running for a quarterback. So if anything, Carolina might be able to trade back and still get their quarterback. I think that's how this scenario should go down, because Carolina should not be picking a quarterback at number 6. There's other talented guys that should be going at 6 other than a quarterback. So I think that Carolina could potentially trade back, still get their quarterback. But let me tell you, they need the quarterback. Sam Darnold is not the answer. 3 games of glory. That's what Sam Darnold's legacy is going to go down as a Carolina Panther. First 3 games, and then he turned into Sam Darnold once again. He didn't see ghosts. He turned into one. That's what the legacy of Sam Darnold is going to go down as. They should trade back, still get their quarterback, but they should absolutely be trying to get one.
And that was mostly rushing touchdowns. He was like the leading rushing touchdown scorer in the NFL for like the first 3-4 weeks or whatever it was. But Pierce, Jags GM Trent Baalke did say teams in business to listen to potential trades for that number 1 overall pick.
They better.
Just saying.
I picked the Jags to win the Super Bowl yesterday.
Did you really? This is why do you do this kind of stuff when I'm not on the show?
Dude, we've been talking about the Jags like every show.
Yeah.
Pierce picked them to win the division. I guess he made a Super Bowl pick. I wasn't around for that segment yesterday.
This is incredible.
Right off the rails.
This is amazing. All right, is that it?
Yeah.
Are we done for this segment?
It says that you're supposed to wrap
Steve, you
this.
crushed it. Unless you have a NASCAR pick, you can join Jeff and Pierce next, because they're going to dive into the Pennzoil 400, I think it is, right? Coming up next. I'm excited for this.
Bubba Watson.
All right, DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich are here to talk about the NASCAR Pennzoil 400. Need your best plays for this one. So, Pierce, You gave us Kyle Larson last week to win, and Larson won this event last year. He's at the top of our DFS prices this week. 6 drivers over 10K. Who is the pick this week at the top?
It's going to be Kyle Larson for
Again.
about every week for the upcoming weeks. Now, last year's race doesn't really matter much because that was a different racing package. But if you go back to 2018, where they had low downforce cars, Larson was one of the fastest cars on the long run, running up against the wall. These cars lack side force, so the closer that you can run next to the wall, you're going to add extra grip, extra speed. There are very few drivers that can do that. Kyle Larson is one of them. He won last week. He very likely will win this week. If he doesn't win, he's still going to accumulate a lot of fast lap points.
All right, Jeff, what do we think? Who's the pick this week at the top?
All the G-forces in play here at the Pennzoil 400, but I'm going to go with Joey Logano. I think I made fun of him at Daytona because he's getting crashes, but he loves this track. Won here twice. Very, very solid performer in Vegas, and I think he's pretty much come out and said like this is definitely one of his favorite tracks. So we were talking about this last week, or Pierce was saying. I mean, golf and NASCAR have this in common that there's definitely drivers with their favorite tracks and everything involved. And looking at Logano, I mean, he's third there in the old DraftKings rankings in terms of salary. So he's saving a little bit going off Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson clearly the top dog. I think Pierce proved that to me last week. But I think Joey Logano is definitely the guy I would be looking to here if you were not paying up for Kyle Larson this week.
Alrighty, Jeff, which driver provides some good value in DFS? I know you've been big on Bubba Wallace in the past, also known as Bubba Watson if you ask Steve Buchanan. But who are you looking at for value this week?
I mean, you probably could go back to Bubba Wallace this week, I suppose. I mean, he's looking very cheap just from a DraftKings DFS perspective at 6,300. I mean, I don't know, maybe Pierce has a better take on that, but I like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 7,200. From by all accounts, again, I mean, this guy's raced really well in Vegas too. He's got, just looking here, wait, where's my chart? He's got 3rd and 11th place finishes in his last 2 Vegas starts. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. So Stenhouse Jr. started the season pretty well. It seems like these new cars gonna do him a little bit of favors this year, and he stood out to me as the best value. So there you go, Pierce. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. That's our value play this week, right?
Yeah, I like Stenhouse. I like Stenhouse in this package and at this racetrack. But I'm going to go with Daniel Hemrick at 5,800. He's running double duty this week, so that means by the time they wave the green flag on Sunday, he'll have already had 2 practices and run an entire Xfinity race. He's also a part of a college racing team that is a part of a 6-team alliance. Those teams are all cooperating and sharing data, and it looks like they're all benefiting early in the season. And then also, he is the reigning Xfinity Series champion. He's just priced way too low, had a great finish last week. I think he's going to be a very popular value play.
All right, over on the DK Sportsbook, in the weekly special tab, we've got the Born in Sin City special. Either Kyle or Kurt Busch to win at plus 700. Home track for the Bushes. So do you like either of their chances? You guys didn't like any of the weekly specials last week, but maybe one catches your eye this week, Pierce?
There is a bet that catches my eye. I'm not going to make it, but it's that all of these 3 drivers finish inside the top 10. It's Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at plus 1,100, which is really interesting because if this bet was on the board last season, it would have been something like plus 10,000 or plus 15,000. It is crazy how quickly things have changed, and it's odd, or maybe not, that the DraftKings Sportsbook believes that all 3 can get into the top 10. But I agree with them. I think all 3 can definitely excel in this new package, and most DFS players do not believe in these guys yet. And so they're going to have really low ownership. So while I'm probably not going to bet this, I think that these 3 drivers definitely should be on the board in DFS.
All right, Jeff, what do we think?
That was one I was looking to too. So that one's interesting. I mean, we always like to go with the long shots, but the one I actually do kind of like and would look to is Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, both to finish in the top 5. I mean, talked about Blaney last week. Blaney, by the way, was on his way to winning. What is going on with his pit crew, Pierce? What is going on with Ryan Blaney's pit crew? I was watching this thing. Every time he went into the pits, he lost like 5 spots.
He lost 93 spots. He was right there.
I thought I was going to come on the show, celebrate a Ryan Blaney win. Pierce would get fired. Now it's just back to square one. Anyways, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, both to finish in the top 5. We know we like Logano. He's got the great Vegas track record. Blaney's racing well. That's my favorite in the old specials there on the DraftKings Sportsbook for the race. All
right, well, again, while Pierce nailed Larson as the winner, Jeff, you did give us a nice little top 10 winner with Eric Almirola. You know, that's an Eric with an A. What?
That's great.
What? All right, who's priced for a top 10 or top 5 are you looking at this week, Jeff?
What is going on?
I don't know.
Okay.
You looked
For
at
a
me
top
like you didn't say Eric right.
It kept every time, and I've said it thousands of times here on this show, every time I look at it and I see it,
It's just
I say
'cause
it
it's an
doesn't
A?
sound the way that it looks like because
Yeah.
of an A, and
I
my
get it.
brain is malfunctioning. Go ahead, Jeff.
Brad Keselowski, top 5. He's been in good form. He's got 12 top 7 finishes in his last 13 races. He's got a good Vegas track record, too. I can go into Brad Keselowski for a top 5 finish. I don't know. Maybe you could maybe dabble on him in the long shot department, but I think plus 400 seems very fair. And then we'll go back to our guy, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Just bet him for a top 10, plus 170. Those are good enough odds. It's not quite as good as what we hit on Eric with an A, Eric, last week, but it's pretty good.
It's actually pronounced
So Stenhouse
Eric.
Jr. top 10, Keselowski top 5.
Arik.
Yeah. No, it's just Eric.
All right, Pierce. What do you like for this one, dude?
Let's go back to Daniel Hemrick for a top 10. He has some of the longest odds. It doesn't make any sense. Last week, he was 6 laps down, and he still came back to finish inside the top 10. You probably say, well, how could that be possible? Well, in this new package, cars are spinning out left and right. They set a record for wrecks and spin outs and cautions last week at Fontana. It will be the same thing again at Las Vegas. There's going to be spin outs. There's going to be wrecks. So if you want to take a chance on someone with even longer odds to get a top 5 or a top 10, it's not the craziest thing, because we're going to see a lot of spins and wrecks and chances at the end. I really like the chances here with Hemrick to get a top 10.
It's actually pronounced Danielle.
Oh, okay. Pierce, who's the winner of the Pennzoil 400? Look into your crystal ball and give us who's getting the W.
Tyler Reddick. Larson is great at running the wall, but Tyler Reddick is even better about getting up there and hugging the wall. Last week, he led 90 of the 200 laps. He looked great until he blew a tire. I have a lot of confidence in Tyler Reddick to win. It's this package completely suits the way that he drives. Last week at Fontana, you got a bumpy groove on the bottom, so you need to run up near the wall, and the guys that run closest to the wall are going to win. And it's the same thing at Las Vegas. The bottom line, you're not going to be able to run it because it's just too bumpy, and these cars create downforce on the bottom of the car. And so if you're running over bumps, you just spin out. If you can run next to the wall, like Reddick and Larson, then you've got a really good chance of winning.
Reddick plus 1,600 to win.
Give it to me.
Jeff, who are you going with? Kyle Larson, the favorite at plus 500.
I mean, after hearing how confident Pierce was and all those things, I kind of just want to bet Tyler Reddick. But I'm going to give out Joey Logano. We'll go with the course history here, much like Rory at Bay Hill. This is Joey Logano's Bay Hill here, folks. He's done extremely well. He's looked pretty good over his last couple races. Plus 800. Maybe sprinkle a little bit on Pierce's pick just in case, but we'll go with Joey Logano for our main pick.
Joey Logano tied for second best odds to be the winner on the DK
Big
Sportsbook.
fan of that guy.
So, yeah.
All
That's
right.
you.
This is me?
Yeah.
Before we go, Pierce, Kyle Busch, racing in the Truck Series event, minus 120 to win. Give us a pick in the Truck Series race tonight and maybe the Xfinity Series race this weekend.
Yeah, and then just another thing about that Cup race. It's a Pennzoil 400, and Joey Logano is the Pennzoil driver, if you want to buy into that narrative.
Oh.
It's happened plenty of times before, believe me. And it's
Dang.
happened for Logano in a Pennzoil race driving a Pennzoil car.
That's cool.
The truck race, I will go with Ryan Preece. I think Kyle Busch can control this race, but it doesn't mean he's going to win. We're going to see plenty of wrecks and volatility. Ryan Preece, in one of his 2 races last season for David Gilliland, won at Nashville. And then in the Xfinity Series, I'm going to go with Josh Berry. Last year, subbing in just jumping in the car at Las Vegas, he went out and won the race handedly. And he looked comfortable running every single groove. Josh Berry is my pick to win the Xfinity race.
Jeff, is your gut telling you anything for these races this weekend? Or
Do you have any
I mean, my guy
drawings?
Sheldon
Yeah.
Creed, who I think crashed out of the last time I picked him, is racing, it looks like, in the Xfinity Series, plus 2,500. I don't know, probably worth a look, but no, I think you should stick with Pierce's picks once we get past the big races because, I don't really know what's going on.
Hey, fair enough. Fair enough, Jeff. Good stuff, guys.
That was awesome.
Enjoy your weekends. Madden is starting at noon with the Browns with the Patriots. The slate will be on at 5 with Kaufman and LaMarca. And Emerson and I will be back. You're here on Monday?
Monday.
I'm not
Let's
here
go.
on Monday.